All right, so I'm recording now. Looks like we got just about everybody. Any concerns or questions on this last Zoom session? Do you have a question, Rachel? Okay. So is everybody kind of on track to finish? You know, if you're not finished yet, you know what you're doing. Okay, this is the time to ask because we don't have another Zoom session. So if there's any concerns moving forward about finishing up, now's the time.
I have a question real quick. What should we do with all of our artifacts once we're done? Like, do you just toss them or?
Well, yeah, so generally speaking, the law is that any artifacts belong to the property owner, okay? So on private property, all artifacts belong to that property owner. Now, when they are actually important historical artifacts, generally speaking, the state likes you to ask the permission of the landowner to send them into the state archives. And so I'm most familiar with doing that in Maryland. And in Maryland, you know, it costs a little bit of money too. It's added to the project budget because you're paying the state to store this stuff, and you need to get everything on in an archival stable box, like acid-free paper on your tags. You know, it's got to be archivally stable, using certain types of bags, certain types of tags. So that part I can't really show you guys, but it's, if you are in the CRM world, that will be like the last step after you've washed and cataloged and the report is written. Then everything gets boxed up and sent to the state archives if you have gotten permission. Otherwise, that gets returned to the landowner if the landowner has not given permission to release those. Because again, in the U.S., kind of private property is king. It's one of the sticking points between Native American tribes and the current law, is that, you know, there's really nothing to stop a private landowner from just going out for fun or, you know, and bulldozing a Native American burial site. And so we're working on strengthening NAGPRA, which is the Native American Graves and Repatriation Act. But at the moment, NAGPRA and all those other NEPA, the first letter in all of those is N, national. It's really only kicks in on federal property or when you're using federal money. So you only have these laws protecting artifacts and protecting archaeological sites when they're on public lands. So yeah, I mean, technically the point that Amanda found, or the 2 points, 3 tools that she found, can stay with the landowner. And the good thing is that the state SHPOs, as long as the landowners are being respectful, they don't care. The time that you'll upset the state is if people are doing it as kind of collecting and looting. But if you're taking notes, generally, like for instance, for mine, my house is not technically a registered historic site. And it's on private property. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a binder with all of my notes, and that's going to stay with the house. And the artifacts are going to be in boxes, and they will stay with the house. And if I ever sell the house, I'll say, oh, by the way, these are the excavations I did. And, you know, that's the best thing, in my opinion, is if the artifacts can stay as close to the site as possible, because then they're actually kind of almost still in association. When they go off to the state, it's like that end of Indiana Jones, right? The big warehouse with just boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff that nobody's going to ever go through again. So I like to keep things as associated with the site as possible. So I really don't have as much of a problem with leaving it with the private landowner. It's a long answer to your question. But other ones, that's a good one.
What's the best way to like clean the equipment? Because I'm just a little worried about just spraying my sifting rack down with water because I just don't want the wood to be warped in any way.
Okay. Yeah. You have a professional sifter, or did you make your own?
I have a professional one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they can get wet. That's not as much of a problem. They will end up getting wet at some point. But I like to use like those boot brushes, you know, so like a heavy brush that you would use to clean mud off of your boots. I generally go over at the end of a season, or sometimes at the end of a day, I'll brush down my, especially any of the metal. So your trowels will rust easily. Your shovels will rust easily. Just leaving them out one night in the rain, you'll start getting rust on them. So your trowels, your shovels, the screen material for your screens is actually this like anodized, I don't know if that's the right word, metal that doesn't rust. So all you're really doing is just cleaning off the dirt. And you're right to worry most about the wood, right? Because you can always buy more screening material and rescreen it. It's the wood that eventually can get chewed up. A lot of archaeologists, for instance, when you're shoveling and throwing it right into the screen, they'll tap the shovel on the screen to get the dirt off. You do that how many times an hour, day in, day out, you basically chew up your screens. So yeah, the screens are probably the most expensive thing that we buy as tools, other than some of the higher tech equipment. And so it's good to keep the wood in good condition. You're right to do that. These are good ones. Keep them coming. Any others? All right. Yeah.
Sorry, did someone else say something? I don't know.
It's all you.
You and I talked about yesterday how after washing some things, they weren't actually artifacts like I thought that they might be.
That's
And
why we're talking.
I wanted to mention that to everyone else so they know, like, you know, don't have to keep those things.
Absolutely. And that's why we wash them, right? Is that when you pull something out of the ground at first, it can look like a maybe artifact. And so you bag it, and then you get back into the lab and you wash it off. And very often in the lab, right next to the washing station, we have the rock pile, which is where we just, yep, somebody pulled this out of the ground thinking it was something, and it's not. And so we toss it. So yeah, you're allowed to toss things all the way up until you're cataloging. Because once you start cataloging, then you're deciding what each thing is, right? Once you start sorting everything, you've got to finally make a decision. And it's no longer appropriate to just say, oh, I'll figure that one out later. There is no later. So sort everything out. And if you have things that you really just don't know what they are, feel free to, of course, text me. But 99% of the time, it's probably just a rock. So, and those of you who only had, you know, modern bottle glass and whatever, you can, after you're done with your report and you got your grade in my class, I don't care what you do with all that trash. So some of you just have modern garbage. And while that, now, don't get me wrong, that in 100 years will be their artifacts. But for right now, they don't really have any historical value. Other questions, comments, thoughts? All right, I want to show you, I'm going to share this one with you. Aaron gave me permission to share this one with the group. So I thought this was a good example of how when you come down on subsoil, in his case, it wasn't exactly subsoil, it was this clay concretion, but when you get down to a certain point, this is why you clean all of that color, because then you're going to find stains. In his case, he found rodent burrows. And rodent burrows look very much like features. And in fact, they really kind of are features. They're just not humans, right? They're something dug in and then turned over the soil, and you have some of the topsoil now down below in the subsoil. Well, that's what humans do when we dig a post. That's what humans do when we dig a pit. And that's what rodents do when they make their homes. So this actually was a pretty good example of feature excavation on Aaron's part.
This is Aaron Samasco, looking at the final layer here, layer 5, my excavation one by one. And so it's pretty weird looking. And you see these giant holes here interspersed in like the really hard, rocky clay fill in the center here. That's the fill there with you see the coal, rock, brick, clay. And what you're seeing here are what I think are some kind of mammal burrow, whether it be from a groundhog or a rabbit, or maybe a fox or something. And I'm not sure if it was here before the fill or after.
Let's think about that question for a second. So because that is a hole through the yellowish clay stuff, the yellowish clay stuff was there first and something cut through it. So anytime you have a cut through a layer, you know that the cut happened after the deposition of that layer.
You can see the really dark soil. I think those probably connect, but I didn't dig down super far because it's not really, it doesn't really matter because the fill came from somewhere else, so it's not really telling you much other than the burrows there.
And I like that he's thinking that way. All right, that's exactly the way an archaeologist thinks. What is it telling me, right? It is excavating this super carefully going to give me more information. That's thinking like an archaeologist. And so once he realized he was definitely in rodent burrow, perfectly mapping everything in, and I mean, it would be good exercise for you, but in the real world, you don't need to spend 2 hours on rodent burrows.
So that's where the exit is over there on the east wall. You can see that really dark soil there. You can see it goes down even deeper than 51 centimeters, but it was getting hard to even get the trowel in there to dig. And I started hitting a little bit of rock anyway, so I don't think it goes down too much deeper, but you can see here, that one goes down more, it goes down at an angle.
All right, so why is it not a post? Because it's pretty darn circular. Why is it not a post?
showing that it's probably not like some kind of a post hole because it's not going straight down, even though it does look pretty uniform there.
But when it goes at an angle like
Walls
that and
there,
connects
see
to
what's
other
playing.
things,
So,
not a post.
so yeah, that's my pitch. See the side profile there. You see where
That side profile is really interesting. And by the way, for some of you, some of you were working in much finer soils where you could get really beautiful walls. When you're in construction fill like this with a bunch of coal in it, scraping your walls just causes more things to fall out of your walls. So this is pretty well done considering the conditions.
the clay and the rock and coal are from the fill. And over here, it started to cave in a little bit because it was real loose. I think whatever mammal it was burrowing in there too. So anytime I trowel over there, it would all just start crumbling away, which is why I use the east wall for a profile picture. And I think this garden, I think there was I know there used to be a garden over there towards the west wall. And I think I was hitting the edge of where that old garden was because you don't see as much clay in there. You see it, start seeing it a little bit, and I really hit it there at the bottom of layer 5 at like 35 centimeters. And yeah, I think that's why it's like that over there. And yeah, you can kind of see the transition here of where the fill stops and where possibly where the garden started.
That's a, yeah, really good profile there
So
too.
that's my pit.
Well done. So, thoughts or comments?
I was gonna say, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I was gonna say that was probably a pain with all that coal. Like, wow, good job for sticking that out. Wow.
And to make a fairly square unit out of that, you know, the walls, I know that the walls looked a little rough, but that's tough, I'm telling you.
There must be some coal mining in my genes.
I was gonna say, I was just so impressed by that because I think I kind of had a similar like crumbly walls and like clay soil that was just like cement, and I don't even know if I was able to go half the depth you were. I was really impressed.
Thanks. I actually I didn't think I thought the walls could have been straighter, but yeah, I guess I don't know.
Well, I mean, sure, and everything always can be done a little bit better. Don't get me wrong, but it really is tough, and I wanted to express that to people is that for most jobs that would be definitely a fully acceptable test pit, and so maybe if you were working like on a really important site that was like a Paleo-Indian site and you were having to go really carefully, you probably could do a little bit better, but it's not always necessary to. And that's one of the other things I liked about your video is that you were expressing the thought process, you know, of, all right, this is why I did this. This is why I did that. And you were clearly thinking it through as opposed to just, oh, I'm supposed to make a square hole, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because it was, I mean, it was that layer especially, it was like pretty hard. So I'm glad to hear that other people have had similar issues. Yeah.
Yes, you're not alone. All right, well, other thoughts? If not, we actually don't have a lesson today because we don't need to, we're not moving forward, we're closing up. So the main purpose of today was to wrap it up, see if anybody needed anything before we stop having our regular Zoom sessions. And also to let you know, I will be sending out a self-evaluation, and that not for me. That Hood does something like that. Pardon me, on Blackboard, where you guys can evaluate me anonymously, and I encourage you to do that, please. But I would like to. I'm going to send out something that you can hand in with your report. That is your own self-evaluation of how you felt like you did using the criteria that I'm going to be using to grade. In other words, give yourself a grade, okay? And we'll see if we agree. And I think it's helpful to be self-reflexive on this stuff and be honest about, well, I could have done this better, but you know, I was really strong in this. So I'll be sending that out in the next few days. And you can hand that in with your report. Other business to attend to. This is honestly it for me.
I have something for like the class.
Oh, that's right.
They're interested. Renee, Aaron, David, Amanda, myself. I don't know if I've missed anybody, but we all already work in the environmental industry. So those of you who are looking to do this as like a career or summer help, you guys should really try to reach out to us, and we might be able to get you on CRM projects or just kind of get your foot in the door. Dr. Hickson has contacts as well, but you guys should really, really, really consider that.
And you guys are like national, right? What's the company? You're allowed to say it.
Environmental Solutions and Innovations.
Environmental Solutions and Innovations. Okay. Do you have
We've got like 5 or 6 big Archie projects coming up. So we're looking for people who have taken a class like this.
But you guys are located all over the U.S., or do you have an office as a home base?
Yeah, like I'm in Denver, Samasco's in West Virginia or PA.
Yeah.
David's in Ohio. Jeremy's apparently in California.
A band down by the river.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Let's say our main office is based out of Cincinnati.
Okay. So, the one you saw, I think I still have my reflective vest over here somewhere, where I walked. I was trying not to use a bunch of logos in my videos of companies that I'd worked for, but I accidentally wore my Stantec outfit one day. Stantec is another one that's it's everywhere. And I was thinking, I think I mentioned to you already that when I was in Alaska, I was impressed. There was a Stantec office up in Anchorage. And so once you're in a big corporation like that, they're kind of like, we used to call them the evil empire, because there were only a few of those mega archaeo companies back in my day. Now it's pretty common, but they can get bids anywhere, and they can and they have enough staff that they can move around, that they can keep people busy. So as long as you're willing to travel and be what we call a shovel bum, and so you live out of hotels, you get per diems, and you do some interesting archaeology all over. I've worked in 13 states so far, which is actually pretty small compared to some CRM archaeologists. So I have connections with Stantec, and I also have their office in Laurel, Maryland. The field director, the assistant director for archaeology at that office is well aware of this field school, and I have worked with her for years, and she has already said that anybody who graduates from this, and if they have work to be had, you're welcome on their projects as well. So basically, as long as I recommend you, Nancy will hire you. So there's jobs to be had, guys. And it kind of closed down for a little bit during the pandemic, but it's about to open up because you have all these backlogged projects that have to be done. The construction is going to go on. And so you need a lot of this regulation work to be done before the construction. So yeah, there's work to be had.
Yeah,
just-
even if you're not interested this year, just networking wise, you still have people to reach out to. Maybe next year you're getting even more experience. Maybe you're getting your master's, and if you want to be in the field, you saw the requirements. You have to have had field experience. So even if you don't think that you want to do something like this now, you might next year. And you've got what, 6, 7 contacts already just from this class that could really put your foot in the door, which would be really awesome. If I was looking for a job, this would be really cool just to get like that experience. This would be really neat for that as well. And you could get to take this school and really just put it into action.
And it's one of those things where, you know, experience is really what builds an archaeologist. It's not taking a bunch of classes. It's experience in the field digging. And one of the risks that any company takes is hiring somebody who has only had a field school, right? Because you don't have that much experience. So networking with people who have personally met you and know that you are at least a responsible person who knows how to take notes, has done soil stratigraphy before, and is willing to give you that first job. And then that first summer, you will have dug, you know, another 20 test units, maybe another 100 or 200 STPs. And now you got experience. So getting that first company to take that risk on you is the challenge. So networking is really the key for that. So everybody keep in contact. You're all a great bunch of people, so why wouldn't you, right? And in Frederick, for those of you who are Hood students, the big company that this is actually the company we used to call the Evil Empire, is Goodwin and Associates, and he's actually a really nice guy. And that was back in the day, again, when we liked the mom and pop small archaeological companies, and the big multinational ones bothered some of us as, you know, anti-capitalists. Anyway, but Goodwin and Associates is located in Frederick. Actually, Mr. Goodwin lives in Frederick, and he is friends with Dr. Ross. So Dr. Ross has connections at Goodwin and Associates, and actually, one of our graduates just got hired there after graduating. So thank you very much, Sarah, for bringing that back up. I had forgotten that you had requested that, and it was very smart to do so.
I had a question about that. Is that something that you would actually need to like have finished your bachelor's degree, or if I went up there and said, "Hey, yo, I've taken this field school," they're not going to tell me to like fuck off, are they?
You don't need a degree or anything. I mean, for archaeology you do, but to be a technician on an archaeology project for this, you just have to have this class, a class like this. And then you can get on the projects. We have a lot of national forest projects, and you have to have a field school to be a tech on them. So yeah, you're good after this class.
I'm gonna challenge that a little bit. Most archaeological firms require a degree, a bachelor's. It doesn't have to be a degree in archaeology, but most of them require a degree, a bachelor's degree plus field school. So
okay, yeah, okay.
And I think most of you from your company came in with a degree in a related field, right?
No.
I know Aaron did. I know.
I have a
Jared
biology degree.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah, so do I. I didn't know if that was
Yeah, that's what I.
It's
So like a
related.
natural resource degree, so I guess.
Yeah.
So the requirement is a bachelor's degree and a field school.
Yeah, I just asked the archaeologist, and he said, yeah, as long as they've got a degree and the field school, they're good to go. So
Right. So if your major is not archaeology, it might be something else. Generally speaking, they do tend to like to hire people with a related degree. But even biology is kind of related if you're into environmental sciences, right? If you're into
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the job requirements in the U.S. there's different tiers. So to be a field tech, actually digging, you need a bachelor's degree and a field school. To be a lab tech, you don't need anything. All right. If you to go in there and wash artifacts, you can do that as an intern. Usually it's an unpaid internship, which kind of sucks. But if you want to go in and just wash artifacts for a company, that requires no degree and no field school. But so the thing that they want to do is make sure that the people who actually dig have some type of formal training. So you're not allowed to go out and dig unless you have the 1 degree and a field school. Then the next tier up, and this is really important actually. So the next tier up is of course getting a master's degree or a PhD. I highly encourage those of you who think you want to be an archaeologist professionally for your career to eventually get that master's degree at least. The reason is you can only be a field tech for so long before your body starts breaking. All right. And you eventually want to be able to be the person who is telling the field techs what to do and writing the report. The only people who are allowed to do that have a master's degree, right? So actually, that's not quite true. You can rise up to the level of crew chief with just a bachelor's, but you cannot be what we call the principal investigator on any project without a master's degree or a PhD. In which case, you're not allowed to sign any of the paperwork. You're not allowed to bid on a project. You're not allowed to write the reports, or at least not sign it. Somebody might actually have you guys write reports and then they'll sign it. But in general, I highly encourage you. My favorite archaeologist in the world works at a small mom and pop firm here. He's the Ottery Group. And again, I have a contact with them, but they're a small unit. And he is really, honestly, the best field archaeologist I've ever worked with. And he only has a bachelor's degree, and he's 50 years old, and his body's starting to break. And, you know, he can't be the guy that stays back in the lab writing the reports and putting out bids and things like that, because he's not qualified, even though he's the best archaeologist I've ever worked with. So do put that master's degree. It doesn't have to be right away. I did CRM for a year in between undergrad and grad school. Some people go much longer. I do encourage you to get that experience of digging a bit in between undergrad and grad, just to make sure you really like archaeology too.
I was going to say, in the biology and environmental world, it's not as, or at least in my experience, it's not as stringent whether or not you have a degree, especially for field technicians. You don't. We've had people that were, you know, still sophomores in college help out as a field tech on biology and environmental projects, and a lot of firms do both. So it would be like, if you're looking for a way to network, you could, and you're also interested in environmental work, or maybe like paleobotany or paleobiology. That would be a good thing to network in, I would think.
Yeah, so if you work for a big enough company, then when there might, and this will actually work for you as well, even if you do have the degree and the field school, working for a big mega corporation like that, if they don't have an archaeological project right then, they might have at least something where you can go out and help them, hold the stadia rod while somebody's mapping something. Go out and collect specimens or whatever you guys do. I actually worked for a, sorry, whatever you biologists do out in the field. I worked for a summer, actually, because this one company, TRC, which telling you right now, nobody worked for TRC. Horrible, horrible company. They had no archaeology at the time, and so they asked all of the field techs, well, what we really need are people who can read maps and take notes to drive our electrical engineers around as they evaluate the DC power grid. So I drove an electrician around and took notes on power poles and power lines, and I now know more about electrical power grids than I ever thought I would know. And that was just make work for the archaeologists so that they didn't have to lay us off, right? But it's a big enough company that since they have their hand in multiple disciplines, that they can shift the field techs around. Yeah, it's a good kind of pro tip for keeping yourself employed as a technician. Make yourself useful.
Yeah, if you do wetland delineations, that involves a lot of looking at soils. So I mean, that's great to cross into that field as well, because I'm sure there's archaeologists who know more about soils than some biologists. So it's
and
good
we
thing
learn
to
from each other. And we learn from each other. It's really valuable to actually cross disciplines a little bit and see wetland soils the way that a biologist would see them, rather than as an archaeologist would see them. Working. Right.
I was gonna say, whenever I was an undergrad, I didn't know any of this, what we're talking about now. So it's a good thing to know. I mean, I went out of it blind, so I didn't even know what, I don't even think I even knew what consulting was. So this is a good thing if you're still getting out of undergrad to network into.
Yeah, and you got to think in terms of nationwide, and honestly, even internationally. A lot of these companies don't just work in the United States. Some of them will work in foreign countries. I haven't done a CRM project outside the United States, but I have friends who have. And so with that many projects going on, not only nationally, but internationally, if you are willing to pack up and go where the work is, there's generally work to be had. Actually, I don't know how active it is anymore. I haven't checked it in a while since I haven't needed it, but let me, oh, I'm missing a bunch of chats here. Good. Excellent. Look at the chats, folks. All right, so I want to just see if this is still active. I think it might have switched over to become a Facebook group. Shovelbums.org. So this guy, rjoe'sshovelbums.org, he set this up in the 90s, back when it was, basic HTML web design. And he just wanted to help network all of the shovel bums across the country into one place. And it's just a dude who just started this, and it has basically stayed one of the main places to look for archaeology jobs. I don't know if it's being maintained, let's see, since 1999. It's filled over 36,000 positions. Join the shovel. It's still an email list. Yeah, email listserv, still 1990s technology, but it works. It's also on Twitter. It's also on Facebook. So shovelbums.org. And then the other one that I often use is the one that I listed this project on, which was, what is it? Archaeology Fieldwork. Okay, here's my page for that, but archaeologyfieldwork.com. So that's a good one. And then there is the, what is it called? I think it's the AIA. Archaeological Institute of America. Yeah. And they host something. If you look on it, you'll find something where they have AIA approved digs, and this is a little bit more towards academia, but it's still a place to find, oh, there's a project going on and they need field techs. They'll be listed here. Trying to think, where is it? No, it's the virtual tours. There we go. AFOB, Archaeological Fieldwork Opportunities Bulletin. And this is more international, and it has it broken down. I think I eventually got on this. It's hard to, where's, oh, it's underneath you guys. There. Nope. I guess they never, I did post to this, but it never got uploaded. So this would be someplace, for instance, I tried to list this field school here. Okay. I'm not sure why it didn't get posted. Don't really care. Love you guys. So I certainly didn't need more students. I think this was a nice round number of students to deal with this. So, but this is where you might look for other opportunities for fieldwork. Okay. All right. This is great. Thank you, Aaron, for sharing your emails. Our Blackboard site actually technically kind of stays out there for a few years. And so I'm going to leave all of that packaged together. I actually, over the last week, went over a lot of my lessons, anything that starts with the word lesson. And there's some really good stuff in there that if you only watched it once, it might be good to watch a couple times, just to really familiarize yourself with how we talk about archaeology and how and just watch my movements of how I'm digging, etc. So I'm going to leave that together as a package until it gets, eventually they clear the lists in a few years. So all those lessons will stay up there. And as long as you still have your hood access, which hopefully they don't take that away from you. I don't think anybody does. You just have to keep updating your password. So, and if any of you just, you got my email, you got my text, you got my phone number. I'm at your service. I'm your field school director. I'm also the one that if you apply to any of these jobs, they'll probably ask for my letter of reference. So keep in touch. This has been wonderful, guys. Any concluding thoughts?
I did want to just tell you that a lot of my friends and acquaintances showed a lot of interest in your field school. And, you know, if sometime in the future you're interested in making it more accessible to the layman, I think you could probably do some kind of private field school like this just to educate,
Yeah, I'm contemplating that. There's a delicate balance. I
or you don't want to teach people how to loot, but people are interested. So
That's exactly the concern in the professional world, is if I
yeah,
just put it out on YouTube as like a free, series of stuff, then I'm telling everybody and their uncle that you can be an archaeologist too, just watch some YouTube videos and go dig.
right.
And it's this interaction where you guys get to ask questions and I'm supervising your work, and that's really where the learning comes in. It's not just watching some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So
I think you would have to, set up as some kind of paid
yeah,
course to, vet people who are actually interested.
but
Yeah,
we are
gotta
considering
pass
that.
along.
We are considering that, and we're going to put, if I get approval for something like that, I actually might bring in our video production team, because we have one at Hood, and they're associated with our department. And so this guy, Tim Jacobson, who runs that program, we could have Hood College students come out and do their video production of my lessons and make it more official and stuff. So yeah, we're thinking about it. I appreciate the vote of confidence stuff. I'm glad to hear that you think it's worthwhile. All right. Very good. Looks like you guys are all chatting away too, which is great. So this Zoom session, of course, has been recorded and will be uploaded again. So if you missed any of those websites we were talking about, you can review this Zoom session. If there's nothing else, it's been real.
Thanks, Professor. This has been
thanks
really
for
fun.
everything.
I'm glad, especially after all of your bruises and scrapes, that you still think it's fun. So awesome.
I wouldn't quite so much call it fun as the torturous kind of fun, which is actually more the fun that I wind up dealing with anyways. So it was good.
Eventually, even it doesn't look like it on screen, but eventually you just get these permanent calluses right along where your trowel hand works, and it never goes away. So it gets better through pain. Right? You have to lose some skin before you actually are able to withstand it.
I'm scared
Alright.
to take my trowel on. I don't think I could take my trowel on a airplane now. It's so sharp.
Well, I'm glad you brought up a few days back how people should really sharpen their trowel. I said that at the very beginning and just assumed you all had done it, but it is something that I had forgotten. In my field school, we would get up each day, and when we got to the field, everybody had to pull out their file and sharpen their trowel each morning. So just letting you know, that is the best thing to do, is to keep your equipment sharp and clean, because it's just going to make life a lot easier. And you can
Felt like
sharpen shovels and stuff too.
I felt like a logger sharpening my chainsaw every day.
Yeah, you can. I think it was Keegan that was saying, can you have too sharp of a trowel? And yeah, I mean, if you use one of those like Dremels or something like that and you really sharpen it up, it can get dangerous. Just be careful.
I used a bench grinder on mine. It's like razor sharp. It's amazing.
Well, you made good walls.
Yeah, slice them up like butter.
Yeah. Jeremy, were you trying to say something there?
Oh, no. Amanda's just making me laugh. Like she often does.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
enjoyed
Folks.
the class, so I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. I really appreciate you too. And you all did a great job under very difficult circumstances. Archaeology is generally a team sport, and you all had to do it kind of on your own. And I thought it was really important to hear from Amanda and Sarah last time about how once you put a team together, archaeology suddenly got much more interesting and enjoyable. And it is. We're
Yes.
social.
Yeah, I can't even describe how like it just gave me a surge of like energy again to just to have conversation with someone and just understand. We both just were like, man, we're in this hole, we're in it for the long haul, and it's just nice to just talk to someone and they respond back. It made it a lot more enjoyable, and hopefully nobody takes like thinking that digging a hole like this by yourself is going to feel like that every time, because once I helped out Amanda, it was just a completely wonderful experience anyway. So you should definitely if you do this in the future and you have somebody else, I think you'll really 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 enjoy it.
The enjoyability is exponentially larger when you're working with a team, even on the most miserable days, because then misery loves company, right? If you're together in a miserable situation, then together you felt like you got through the day.
We had a fair amount of trauma associated with the last archaeology project we were on. Sarah and I were on together, and also Jeremy and David and
Aaron.
Yeah, and Aaron. Yeah.
What were you
So this was nice because it was definitely. I feel like I have less PTSD now.
What was the
We were,
project?
we were working for Stantec,
Mhm.
and they were slave drivers.
We were
'Cause
working like
and get
16-hour
project on.
days every day. Like,
Weren't they super competitive about who could dig holes faster?
yeah, like people were kind of giving us crap because we were biologists. Like we weren't, qualified to dig holes, and like I don't know. It was
You technically were
weird
not.
and-
They wanted us to dig 50 holes a day.
50.
yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
All right.
it was
Yeah, it was a big
So-
push. They had everybody out
Dawn to dusk. Like
12 hours a day.
Most of it was like solid rock too, like all just chirped.
we
So-
did a field of 300 STPs in one day, but there was like 30 of us.
Well, so that guy I mentioned, who's my favorite archaeologist, works over at Ottery Group. He has a thing that he'll pull only with an experienced crew. We'd never do that with you guys, but you do your work each day, and you see how many STPs you do on a normal day, and then like in week 2 or 3, after you've gotten your pacing down, then we call it quota day, and we will stop working whenever we meet 150% of what we normally do. So if you normally dug 10 STPs, you were expected to dig 15 that day, and then we'd leave. And
that would have been great. Like, do as many as you can and get done fast, so
Right.
we can send you to do more.
But then his boss was like, well, shit, why don't we make every day quota day then? If you're going to do 150% of the work, then you should be doing that much every day. We're like, they would die. I mean, yeah. That's a cute one, Aaron. Yeah, do be careful, because different companies treat their field techs differently and have different requirements on how much they're expecting you to do, how much it is kind of like a job, and versus how much of it is more like research. So when you're just digging a hole and filling it in and digging a hole and filling it in, it definitely starts to feel just like a job, and they can work you pretty hard. Be sure to take breaks when you need to. Don't ever let anybody push you to the limit of actually injuring yourself. All right. Other thoughts? I don't want this to end. But every good class must end, so let's end it on that wonderful collaborative high note where you all are going to help each other in the future and get each other jobs and hopefully stay in touch, not only with each other, but with me. So anybody who is in the Martinsburg, West Virginia area, we will be meeting at the Kearneysville 7-Eleven at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then we're going to drive out to do about 8 STPs on a prehistoric site. So 8 a.m. at the 7-Eleven in Kearneysville, West Virginia. I know Ariel and Megan are going to come. All righty.
I really wish I could, but my new schedule has me working on Friday now.
Okay. Well, we could use all the help we can get just because the STPs are going down about 70 centimeters and it's going to be 95 degrees. So it's going to be a fun, hot day. All right. On that slightly depressing ending note, you guys take care. This has been real and fun, not always at the same time. And stay in touch. I'm going to end the recording here.